Okay, let's see. I think we're live. Okay, so I just wanted to talk about the recent social media bans. They seem to be coming in waves now. Uh, you might have heard about the suspensions of Sargon, of Akkad's, and Tommy Robinson's campaign accounts before the European elections. They were targeted not for any violations. These were basically campaign accounts run by UKIP, the former Brexit party that's it's kind of gone into oblivion and after the departure of Nigel Farage. But they were basically suspended for or banned from these accounts. These weren't personal accounts. This was more or less a direct suppression of their right to campaign for these elections and their speech. Now, there really isn't a protection or protections for free speech in Europe, and particularly now in the UK, which has been trying to accommodate Islamic the new Islamic members of the UK. They don't want anything that will breach the tenets of Sharia law, of Sharia. So they're trying to squelch any sort of critique of Islam. And you may remember a pastor who was actually had his Bible confiscated and was detained for basically preaching the gospel. This happened around Speaker's Corner, which is a renowned place for debate and within London. So you can't really be surprised by this, but the fact that social media companies that aren't British, they're not European, they're essentially enforcing Sharia and enforcing the dictates of the EU, which is the antithesis of a democratic institution. They're trying to enforce the dictates of undemocratic, in many cases Islamic thought police. And you can see this by the fact that they're enforcing the dictates of Pakistan. And I brought this up before, but it's worth repeating. Pakistan, if it did not have a nuclear arsenal because of A.Q. Khan's theft of nuclear secrets from European countries, they would. It's kind of like North Korea. If Pakistan did not have a nuclear arsenal, no one would give them any concern. I mean, even India would not allow them to fund jihad and run riot if they did not have the threat of this psychotic Islamic State with nuclear weapons. They wouldn't allow them to do anything. It would be what it is, a third world, a third world backwater with nothing to recommend it. I mean, this is a crime infested hellhole run according to the dictates of Islam. This is what the ideal Islamic country would look like. If you want to look at Pakistan, where M- Uh, a large percentage of the population is illiterate. There's teeming poverty. There's just rampant depravity. Pakistan makes Sodom and Gomorrah look like the celestial city. And yet, Facebook and all of these social media companies are preemptively censoring people like David Wood or the apostate prophet or anyone who criticizes Islam because these beliefs contradict the ethos of Pakistan, which is, for all intents and purposes, an Islamic state. This is the state where this is the nation where the governor of Punjab was murdered for wanting to protect religious minorities, where Asia Bibi was imprisoned and persecuted before having to flee for pointing out the fact that Islam has done nothing for Pakistanis. I can't recall exactly what she said during the encounter, but they were persecuting her, the people, the Muslims in this local village. And she said something along the lines of, Jesus died for me. What has Muhammad done for you? And this was a brilliant illustration of the difference between a false gospel like Islam and a and the truth, which is Jesus Christ. And for that, she was mercilessly persecuted. And this is just the type of country that Pakistan is. And there's nothing. These companies are doing their bidding, and it's not even as if you could say this is a country like Saudi Arabia or Qatar, which is also a barbaric, inhuman, obscurantist Muslim backwater. But well, they have oil, and they give us oil. They're wealthy, so they can bribe us into ignoring human rights. They don't have any of that. Like I said, Pakistan, if it didn't have a nuclear weapon, it would have nothing. It would be the equivalent of Yemen. The only thing that Pakistan exports is contraband missile technology and terrorists. Those are the only two things Pakistan exports. If you wanted to ask me, if you ask me what their third largest export was, I wouldn't even be able to tell you. And yet, this is the country who that social media corporations are knuckling under to, and it's really gotten to a point where there doesn't seem to be any value or utility in continuing. Even if you haven't yet been banned, there's no real utility in continuing because you can't exercise any type of freedom to criticize any of these shibboleths, whether it's Islam or mass immigration from the third world or the insanity of transgender ideology. The apostate prophet was just banned. His last account from Twitter was banned. And he's been doing interviews about this with David Wood and other YouTubers. And now Nick Monroe, who was one of the cutting edge journalists on Twitter, who was in contrast to all of these blue check zombies who are just regurgitating the same insipid platitudes and the same just garbage that the mainstream media is producing. He was actually doing real investigative journalism, and he was banned for that. Just like a researcher who had mapped out all of the links between quote unquote mainstream journalists and Antifa activists and had proven that a lot of these journalists really are Antifa activists using the cloak of journalism in order to distribute their propaganda. He was also banned, and Nick Monroe, ironically, he's now part of the social messaging app Telegram. I honestly don't know that much about it, but one of the ironies is that Telegram is also used by jihadists. So now you have people, anti and counter jihadists, and real journalists, and people who are trying to break the stranglehold that the media has on the public. You have these people flocking to a service known in large part for being an outlet for jihadists. I'm sure that's not the intent, but one of the reasons I suppose they migrate there is because they can escape certain strictures. But ironically, jihadists probably have less to worry about than anti-jihadists, considering the way things are going.